You're listening to a podcast from the BMA.
Dr. Radhakrishna Shanbhag is chairman of the BMA's committee that represents staff grade, specialty doctors and associate specialists. He joins me today to discuss the BMA's annual conference of staff grade and associate specialists, which was held at BMA House. This year's event focused on the challenges facing SAS doctors. Professor Malcolm Lewis from the GMC started the day with a keynote speech about revalidation. A difficult audience given the recent call from the BMA that the GMC needs to go back to the drawing board. Dr. Shanbhag, what are your concerns about revalidation?
The principle for revalidation is fine, but then this process requires you to gather a lot of evidence. Being SAS doctors, we do not have enough time provided within the SPAs to collect this evidence. And in addition, you must remember, being clinicians, taking us away from what we do best, that is take care of patients. Is it worth it? That's what we have to think about. The next part is they have this concept of responsible officers. What happens? Who is going to be appointed a responsible officer? We have been told it is usually going to be the medical director, but then the medical director is a member of the trust board and is likely to have conflict of interest. And in this economic environment, I'm worried that he may use the process of revalidation to make doctors conform to the trust agenda.
At the actual conference, the doctors felt very strongly about the principle of responsible office, and I believe they passed a motion that actually called the whole process of responsible officers as being fundamentally flawed.
That is true, and it is all revolving around conflict of interest. Because who will do that role efficiently, and then who is going to revalidate the responsible officer himself or herself? So there are many concerns about this concept, and I think we need to look at it very closely.
Sure. I mean, do you think the coalition government is listening to the BMA's views on revalidation?
It does appear that they have been listening. Andrew Lansley has acknowledged some of our concerns, but there is still a lot of work to be done that needs the current proposal to be re-evaluated to see whether it is practical for doctors and patients.
In the afternoon, John Ford gave a talk about the financial state of the NHS. Did you get the impression that the economic crisis could threaten doctors' jobs and patient services?
Oh yes, it will. I'm really worried about this. I think there is a real fear that jobs will be lost, contracts will be eroded, and pensions could be squeezed. We have to be wary, but continue to work hard to let employers realize that we are value for money.
One of the motions from the Oxford region talked about SAS posts being dissolved, with new non-standard posts being created instead. Do you think there is a danger that SAS doctors will be picked off in this way as trusts look for ever more creative ways to save money?
Yes, this is a worrying development and will be hugely damaging to our staff morale. We will be investigating this activity to see how widespread it is. All doctors working on our grades should be offered nationally agreed contracts, and we will do all we can to safeguard this position.
In your own speech, you mentioned contract implementation. The new contract was signed off in 2008, but why has it been so slow in some trusts?
Yes, the process of contract implementation has been increasingly frustrating for many. Implementation has been patchy, but many trusts have made great strides to implement the contract promptly, whilst others are dragging their heels. And this is all down to the economic environment. The job planning process, which involves providing SPA time, is the bone of contention, and that is why they are dragging their feet, and I don't see light at the end of the tunnel yet.
Another interesting debate was about the fact that SAS doctors who have gone through the arduous process of gaining the Certificate of Eligibility for Specialist Registration, the so-called CSER, are now finding it much more difficult to get consultant posts. Is the CSER being seen as a second-class CCT by most employers?
Yes, it is. Having gone through this arduous process, as you say, of applying and obtaining a CSER, it is deeply frustrating that these individuals are still treated as second-class specialists, having to wait considerably longer to first be shortlisted and then to get a post. CSER and CCT lead on to the specialist register, and the end point should count, not the route. We need to work to remove this distinction.